The day one release of Aces of Thunder was a little bit disappointing for Flatscreen users because it did not automatically support head tracking. The devs have not yet stated when they're going to add this functionality as far as I'm aware. However, you can set up basic head tracking for this game, and I'm going to show you how. Step 1 is to download Opentrack. It's available freely from the GitHub website. I'm using the latest release 2026 version. Click on the setup.exe file to download it. Once it's downloaded, open the file and follow the installation instructions. Once you are in Opentrack, you should see something like this. Create a new profile for yourself. Set the input to neural net tracker, but if you have your own preferred input method, that might also work. And then set the output to mouse emulation. I use the Accela filter. I haven't tried any others. We're going to go into options next. I'm going to switch to my existing profile so you can see how I've got it set up. Go into options, and then it's a good idea to set yourself keybinds for centering the head tracking and also to toggle, which means to pause the head tracking. This is important because there are times when you'll want to pause the head tracking so that you can use your mouse normally. I've also set a shortcut to toggle the tracking on and off, but that is not so important. Have the center at startup ticked, and then we can move on to the output tab. We're only going to use yaw and pitch because the mouse only has 2 degrees of freedom, so disable all of the other axes. I don't bother to set up game detection. Have relative translation mode enabled. I also have the neck displacement enabled. I haven't tested this thoroughly, but I use a 7 cm offset. In the tracker tab, select your webcam, find out its field of view and enter that as well. I only use a fairly low resolution of 640 by 480 and 30 FPS, and I find that works just fine. I wouldn't change anything in the camera settings, but I would just check you've got your power line frequency set correctly for your country's electricity grid. We do need to calibrate the head center offset, but we'll come back to this later. In the filter tab, I put the smoothing up to full on both and a small dead zone. Click OK and we'll move on to axis mapping. Click on mapping and then you should see this graph pop up, which is the yaw axis. I'm using a 27-inch monitor. I've got the max input set to 25 degrees. If you're using a larger monitor, you might want to use a bigger max input value. The max input determines the size of the x-axis on this graph, which corresponds to your actual head movement turning left or right. The y-axis will correspond to your in-game pilot's head rotation left or right. So I have this set up such that for 25 degrees of rotation of my actual head, it will correspond to 180 degrees of rotation of my in-game pilot's head, which will give me full visibility around my cockpit in the horizontal plane. If I start the tracker now, you can see how it works. The red dot moves up and down the line as I turn my head. Make sure you add a dead zone. I've got mine set at 0.5 degrees. Moving on to the pitch axis, I have the max input set to 10 degrees, although I'm only using about 6 degrees of that if you look at the shape of my graph. And although the max output is 180 degrees, I'm only using about 100 degrees. Don't forget to add the dead zone. We can now come back to calibrating the tracker. Start the tracker, make sure your head is in the center, and then it's a good idea to press your shortcut key to center the head tracking. then click on Options and go to the Tracker tab. It's these figures here in the head center offset that we are going to calibrate. Click on Start Calibration to calibrate the yaw. Turn your head left and right and take your eyes to the edge of the monitor in each case. Pitch calibration doesn't work so simply. Try to circle your head around, following the edges of your monitor with your eyes. Do it a few times, maybe also zigzag your eyes across your monitor screen as well, until eventually you should get enough data points for the calibration to finish. Once you see this message, you can stop the calibration and it will set these head center offset values. The last thing we need to do in Opentrack is map our head tracking to mouse output. Click on the output wand. It's a good idea to pause your head tracking at this point, otherwise the mouse might move around erratically, and assign the X and Y axes of your mouse to your yaw and pitch head movement. Reduce the sensitivity down as shown. You should now be able to move the mouse pointer around with your head as well as the mouse. One thing you need to do before you load the game, and you should do this every time, is position your head in the center and then press your shortcut key to center the head tracker. So just remember, if you want to do something with the mouse on its own, just pause or stop the head tracking. The last thing we need to do is go to your in-game keybinds and scroll down to the mouse look key. Default keybind is C. I've got it set to V so it doesn't conflict with my shortcut key to center the head tracker. Bind it to a button on your HOTAS that you will be able to keep pressed for long periods of time. I'm going to change it back to V here just because I do my HOTAS button binds in a separate piece of software. If you have a spare axis on your HOTAS that is easily accessible, I recommend binding it to head left right. That will give you some extra flexibility to spot and follow objects. That is all of the setup done. You are ready to fly. This is how it looks in practice. Make sure before you start using it that your head is in a central position, and then press your shortcut key to center the head tracking. Then by holding down the button on your HOTAS that you bound to mouse look, you should be able to look around your aircraft and voila, basic head tracking. If the system gets confused, bring your actual head back to a central position and press your shortcut key to center the head tracking. If you bound an axis to head left right, then you'll have that extra degree of freedom as well. Hope this has been helpful. Good luck out there. Thanks for watching.